Oh God, Dane.
Figuring out who the worst RPG party members are is no easy task. Unlike the best characters in a game, most people don't experiment to find out who are the worst. But today we are going to examine 10 of the worst party members in the RPG genre that I could find. Now, similar to my top 10 broken party members and main characters videos, we'll be examining each party member within their individual titles. We're looking at who are the most useless, counterproductive, or broken, and not in a good sense, party members. A note here, I'm going to exclude characters that lack endgame availability, as these are often considered bad characters due to their circumstances. So characters like Aerith from Final Fantasy VII or Edward from Final Fantasy IV will not show up on this list. Finally, be sure to subscribe and check out our other top 10 lists. Number 10. Xenoblade Chronicles created a new battle system fashioned from the gameplay found in many MMORPGs. In this first title, roles like DPS and tanks become incredibly important, but unfortunately for Sharla, healers were underutilized at best and completely worthless at worst. Sharla's entire kit is based around supporting the team, specifically healing their HP. But in Xenoblade Chronicles, passive healing and damage avoidance via evasion are much more viable strategies. By the mid-game, most players abandon her for another damager slot, and she ends up benched for the remainder of the game. If you do choose to use her in the endgame, you'll find that her healing abilities don't scale with endgame battles, essentially occupying a space better held by any other player. Number 9. When it comes to party members, Lost Odyssey is a unique title, as 4 of your party members, called the Immortals, will always end up in your endgame party. You see, in this title, mortal party members are the only characters that can learn new skills. The Immortals can then learn skills gained from the mortal characters. This means that most mortals will be used up until their usefulness allows them, then will be abandoned to the bench. All but Tolten. Tolten will never make it off the bench. Aside from the ability to bestow some of the best equipment to the Immortals, Tolten has no other use whatsoever, not to mention that you gain him so late in the game as well. To put it simply, the Immortals are your starters, the Mortals are your second string, and Tolten gets lost on his way to the arena. Number 8. Final Fantasy Type 0 has multiple party members you can choose from that range from godly to, well, Cinque. The best thing I can say about Cinque is that when you slam her mace down, you can see her panties, and that's just silly. The worst thing you can say about her is that her attack animations are insanely slow, and you can't cancel out of them, making her a sitting duck through the entirety of the game. The devs did make her tanky, though this doesn't really help her against enemies, and it definitely doesn't balance out her terrible moveset. Number 7. The Shin Megami Tensei series has always put an emphasis on buffing and debuffing. After years and years of game design, I think they've landed on a winning formula. Pick up any of these games and you'll find intricate turn-based battle systems built upon inflicting your enemies with debuffs and elements in order to turn battle in your favor. Digital Devil Saga is no exception here, and all the party members in this game have a different element, strength, and weakness. Except for Cielo. He isn't weak to any element. You might think that that would make him good, but it does not. You see, whenever a character's weakness is exploited, the enemy gains an extra action. Cielo isn't weak to an element, but weak to any and all status elements. This means that there are more chances of his weakness being hit, and not only is he hit with the weakness and gives the enemy an extra turn, but he is also inflicted with an ailment. It is common knowledge that Cielo is the uncontended worst choice for your party. Number 6. As I stated in my broken party members list, the most important statistic in Legend of Dragoon is speed. Turn order, amount of times you can attack before your opponent, and first strikes are all determined by this stat. Because of this, a character with absolutely abysmal speed would end up practically useless. That character just so happens to be Kongol. Kongol is built like a truck with high strength and defense, but because of his terrible speed, he hardly gets to use that attack, and faster characters end up doing more damage over time. The worst part is even if you use the rare speed increasing accessories to bring his speed up, he'll still be below average compared to all other party members. Number 5. Speaking of slow characters, Massimo from Mega Man X Command Mission is at the top of the slow and terrible party members list. But if that was all, he might have landed below Kongol. What makes Massimo even worse is that he takes extra elemental damage. He can only equip 2 Force Metal slots when all the characters can equip 3, and with 0 as an accessible party member, there is just absolutely no reason to use him, period. Number 4. Breath of Fire has always put an emphasis on field skills, and this was true all the way in the beginning with the original Breath of Fire. So imagine you're a character built for underwater exploration, but you joined the party only after your skills were needed. That's Gobi's story. Not just that, but his fusion can only be performed underwater, but again, at the point you gain him, you have finished all underwater portions. Even if you did have him during these sections, he'd still essentially be useless because his skills and stats are terrible. Number 3. Trails into Reverie is the most recent title in the Trails series, and in it, you can select from 51 characters, and all of them are useful in one way or another, other than Swin. Swin's character-specific skill is that he can mark enemies using his crafts. Then if he attacks again, he guarantees a critical. The only issue is that this is a stupid mechanic in a game where guaranteed crits happen almost effortlessly. There are so many factors from weapon types, crit rates, and quartz placement that can make crits happen in a one-turn cycle. Because of all this, and taking into account that Swin's entire mechanic is built around these crit strategies, Swin is essentially a broken character. Ignoring these mechanics and using him as a caster is your best strategy, but even then, he's still the worst. Number 2. There are so many bad party members in the Fire Emblem series. I searched for the worst of the worst, and unfortunately, there is no definitive verdict. But I'm going to wager that I'm safe stating that Sophia from Fire Emblem 6 is among the absolute worst this series has to offer. She joins halfway through the game at level 1 and has the worst base stats you will ever see. Now, all of this would be excusable if her growths were good or even average. But with low speed, defense, and HP growths, and the existence of Ray and Nime, there is just no reason to use her at all. Number 1. Our final party member might be the most obvious, but Yogurt from the Shining Force series, specifically the first title, is definitively the single worst party member attainable in an RPG. He's level capped at level 1 and can only damage enemies for a single HP. He can't increase his stats, which stands at 1 attack, 1 defense, and 1 agility. The only thing he brings to the party is a unique accessory that turns other party members into yogurt sprites. Overall, there has never, and probably will never again, be a more useless party member. And that's our list. Let me know in the comments who I missed for a follow-up list coming soon. Thank you to all my Patreon members and their continual support. If you would like to request your own list today, join the Pro tier for only $5 a month. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you all later.